Some unexplained phenomena of the Battle of Marathon. This is the battle that changed world history. Can you imagine if the Persians did actually conquer all of Europe? We would not be what we are today. This has to do with all of us. This is also, remember that the Archangel Gabriel appeared to the prophet Daniel in the exile in Babylon to tell him what would be going on before all this. Let's remember the Spartans are of the tribe of Dan. They could not join the Athenians against the Persians that were invading in the beginning of September because it was Rosh Hashanah, and the Spartans could not go to help the Athenians until after their Rosh Hashanah was over. So, the 5 unexplained phenomena of the Battle of Marathon. Historic background of the battle, as in Ionia in the Greek cities, that is today's western coast of Turkey, which included large centers such as Miletus and Bodrum, could not maintain their independence and came under the rule of the Persian Empire in the middle of the 6th century BC. In 499 BC, the Greeks of the Ionian city-state started the Ionian Revolution, and Athens, together with the island of Eretria, moved to their aid. In 490 BC, the Persian king Darius I, having suppressed a revolt of the Ionian cities from 494 BC, sent his fleet to punish these two cities. The Persian army destroyed Eretria and landed in Attica, that's on the shore north of Athens, Greece. But in the Battle of Marathon, the area of Marathon, that's where we have the Marathon run. But in the Battle of Marathon, it was defeated by the Athenians and others under General Miltiades. And they didn't expect to be defeated. They just wanted to, they sent their women and children away. And the Athenians said, well, there's an honor in the way we die. We're going to die anyway. We might as well defend our land and families. They didn't expect to win, actually. Now, line up in battle. There were 11,000 Greeks. There would have been more if Spartans came. They didn't. 11,000 Greeks and 10,000 Persians. Actually, the 11,000 were 10,000 from Athens, but then some people about an hour's drive north of Athens from Plateis came to help the Athenians because they said, you helped us in our war, so we're sending 1,000 troops from us to help you. So then that makes the 11. Now, Miltiades' the general plan was to engage in a battle with the Persian infantry as soon as possible to avoid casualties from enemy archers. Now, the Greeks didn't have horses. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box. They didn't have horses. The Persians had horses, and so basically they were like, the horse archers were basically like their tanks. The Greeks didn't have a navy either, which the Persians did, but that came later. So his plan, Miltiades, the general, his plan was to engage in the Persian infantry as soon as possible to avoid casualties from the Persian archers. Every night before the battle, the Greeks reduced the distance between the two front lines, and on the day of the battle, they had reached a distance of about 1,500 meters, or 8 stadiums. At the far right, Callimachus was placed in charge, followed by the 10 tribes, the 10 Athenian tribes, 1,000 from each tribe, and the Plataeans that had another 1,000 in the far left. And General Miltiades lengthened the front so that the right and left horns were strong and weaker in the center. In other words, he was faking a retreat, and he had placed flanks that were strong to encompass the Persians and push them into a swamp. Marathon is a very swampy area. So that's what happened. And they had a running attack at dawn. That's the first time a running attack was used. Now, the Greeks attacked the Persians quickly, running to the last meters, probably thus surprising the Persians. The severity of the conflict gave an advantage to the strong extremes. The battle was ambiguous for some time until the two Persian wings collapsed and fled. The battle only lasted 3 hours. Now, in the center were the elite forces, where the Persians and the Sakis, the Greek formation, disintegrated and retreated. The flanks, however, turned back and attacked the Persian center, encircling them, and the fierce battle ensued. Finally, the Persians fled towards the area of Skynias, which is where the swamp is. It's a beautiful beach there. Skynias, where the Persian ships were. Many Persians fell into the swamp and drowned, and the battle continued in Skynias as the Persians tried to escape. Kallimachos, General Stisilias, and Kineiros, Aeschylus' brother, died there, and the Athenians managed to capture 7 Persian ships. The battle was over. The dead Persians are estimated by Herodotus around 6,400, while the Greeks only lost 192. After their victory, a messenger was sent to announce it in Athens, who recovered as soon as he arrived from fatigue. Unexplained facts. Unexplained first. The Battle of Marathon, according to Herodotus, had taken place on a plain. It has nothing to do with any other battle in Greece, such as, for example, the Battle of Thermopylae with Leonidas and his 300, which was in a strait. In Marathon, the plain allowed the development of the entire Persian army as it was done. That is, the Greeks chose to face the Persian frontally and with all the breadth of their power, which would be a serious disadvantage for them. But why did they choose this way? By showing the opponent that they despised his power and that they were sure of their victory. Well, they weren't sure of their victory, I said, because I studied the Battle of Marathon very, very well. They were not sure of their victory. They just wanted to die with glory and honor. Because there is a saying in Greek, in the ancient Greek, saying, you show who you are by the way you die. Your last moments in life, okay? Now, the second unexplained fact. According to Xenophon, on the battlefield, the Persians developed a depth of 30 men in the center of their formation. Here it is not considered that the extremities of the Persians were weak. With less depth, we take it as an equal. This gave an increase of an army of 100,000 men who were there at around 3,300 meters. On the other hand, the Greeks were only 11,000 people, and in order to be able to face an equal front against the Persians, their depth had only 3 men, and something, not counting that they had strengthened their limbs, which would give a shorter length. We know from history that the front of the Greeks was 1,600 meters, hence about 6 men, about the same depth. So from the above, it appears that there were more than 850 meters on one side, 850 meters on the other side of the Persian front, which would stand and do nothing. The question is that if things went that way, why is the army of 850 meters on one side and 850 meters on the other did not move in a circle to trap the Greeks like deadly pliers? They didn't do that. Unexplained third fact. In the works of Herodotus and Pausanias, we have the presence of a man unknown to the Greeks who appeared unannounced. To me, he was an archangel. Okay, I'll tell you why. Because the archangel Gabriel gave a prophecy to the prophet Daniel. He said, blessed is the nation that stops the Persians. And there's only one nation that stopped the Persians, and that's the Greeks. And the Greeks, of course, were of the tribe of the Spartans of Dan, and they were, of course, descendants from Abraham. But they forgot that. Okay, so this person, this entity, was a humanoid which was taller, and he was light, and he wore a strange uniform that looked like a farmer and not a warrior. He held a weapon that looked like a plow, but it was made of intense light. Later, the Greeks asked for information about this person from the Delphi oracle, and the priest named him Echetlau. Quote, it happened, as we say, a man in battle loses his kind and his farming utensils. Such barbarians you slaughtered many plows after the work was invisible, and the Athenians did not use any other gods against him, and Echetlaus became a hero, unquote, according to Pausanias. This man was advanced on the battlefield, and he was shooting down the Persians with his weapon with incredible speed. It supposedly was a laser, because one of the troops of the Athenians, one of the hoplites, was blinded by looking at this laser rod. Now, others call it field blindness, battle blindness. No, he was blinded by looking at the laser rod. Now, Herodotus also tells us that an Athenian soldier, Epesilos, son of Kuphagoras, while fighting bravely chest to chest, suddenly lost his sight in both his eyes, even though nothing had touched him, neither a spear nor a sword nor an arrow, because Epesilos saw Hitlaus's spear laser weapon, I guess. So, look, when you read, please go and read in the Old Testament, the book of Maccabees. You'll see that many times when the ancient Greeks were fighting against the Maccabees, where the Maccabees were outnumbered, the ancient Greeks would just drop their weapons and flee away. And when the Maccabees asked them later, why did you do that? They said, we saw these huge light beings standing next to you, and we got frightened. There was no way that we would win against them. So these huge light beings were obviously God's angels. The Maccabees weren't able to see them, but the enemies, the ancient Greeks, did. So we do have entities like this helping or doing something in battle. And another part of the Maccabees, when one of the archangels asked the Maccabees, look up above you, what do you see? And they said, we see a war going on. And the angel said, yes, that's exactly what's happening. In other words, the spiritual world may be warring, and then that brings war to the earth. Isn't that something? Things that we can't explain happening around us in another dimension. But going back to this, the Athenian soldier Epesilos, son of Kuphagoras, while fighting bravely chest to chest, suddenly lost his sight in both his eyes, even though nothing had touched him, neither a spear nor a sword nor an arrow. Herodotus goes on to say that Epesilos is said to have seen a large hoplite whose beard covered his entire shield, and that his ghost was holding a very bright weapon in his hands. He passed right next to him, killing Persian opponents. He saw at this scene was the last Epesilos saw because he was blinded by some excessive glow. So this shows that the weapon held by Echetlaus inflicted deadly blows from afar without touching people, while all the weapons of the time had to be touched, if nothing else. Who was this man, from where he came from, and what kind of destructive weapon was he holding against his opponents? Now, was he an extraterrestrial? Was he an Atlantean? Was he one of God's angels? We don't know. The fourth unexplained fact. Throughout the preparation for the battle until the day of the conflict arrived the Greeks moving in the evening so that their movements were not visible towards the Persian front until the day of the battle. Herodotus tells us that they had reached 8 stadiums from the Persian camp. That's about 1,480 meters. The reason they did this was that the Greeks knew that the Persians had a firm tactic before the final clash, and when the opponent approached their side to throw a barrage of 2 to 3 repetitive arrows from their archers. So the Greeks, with these evening's moves for approach, were trying to reduce the distance from the Persians and therefore their losses. The question that arises is, how did the Greeks manage to approach the Persians on the battlefield without having serious losses from the onslaught of arrows, as only 192 Greeks were killed throughout the whole battle? In 3 hours this battle took 3 hours. Is it that the Persians knew no sign, could not succeed for other reasons, or that they did not manage to do so? And the fifth unexplained fact. The Battle of Marathon began about 5:30 in the morning, and the Persian generals ordered a retreat at 8 in the morning, hence 2.5 hours after the start of the battle. The strange thing is that everything had happened in such a short time. 6,400 Persians were decimated by a Greek army that numbered 1/10 of their own force with tremendous speed and efficiency. How is it possible that something like this had happened in such a short time? There are many unexplained phenomena in the Battle of Marathon, but I think all of these above questions that I have the impression that they will never be answered with 100% certainty. This is from Frielas Spektokaria on Diadrastika. I've translated this for you for a Greek article. I think this is a very interesting facts for us to know, for discussion, and this is all part of our ancient history. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support.